Woods and Waters with your host, Bud Leavitt.
If you're not feeling good, we're going to make you happy tonight and healthy. Doc Sullivan is here. Doc Sullivan, he can make you healthy and he can make you happy. And who is Doc Sullivan? James W. Sullivan, University of Maine, and a pretty good football player right after the early 50s. Now the head man at the University of Maine of Southern Maine. Good to see you, old friend.
It's always great to see you, Brad.
Huh? You look great.
I don't know about that. I'm trying to hold my own.
You're holding it well. Tell me about Jim Sullivan. What have you been up to since you left Orono?
Well, it's quite a long story. I don't know if you want to hear it all
Well, I'll
right
listen
now,
to it. Go ahead.
Well, I was real fortunate when I left the University of Maine. I was asked to come to the University of Delaware with Dave Nelson, where I've learned many things.
Learn how to fish.
Well, fish, not at that time.
All right, go ahead.
It was just football and management, and there was a lot about facilities and fields and all that. And Coach not only gave us that kind of background, but he gave us a background where he thought it was extremely important that we know about the values of good living. And he believed in it, and we all did too. And those lessons of life will never be forgotten as far as I'm concerned.
Tell me about the little general. Is he behaving down there?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think there's a man in the country that knows more about football. I know there's not a man in this country that knows the football rules like the coach does. He was the youngest member of the NCAA Rules Committee when he started, and he's done an extremely great job with those rules over the years. And I know that for a fact. I've read most of those rules as they change year to year. I've talked to him personally many times, and he's been a close friend of mine for many years.
Well, you know, when he came to University of Maine, right in the 50s, when you were a boy, see, and there was Mike Luden and Westy, Harold Westerman, and so forth.
Right.
All he ever talked was football. Now, the last time I saw David Nelson, all he wanted to talk about is fishing. He suddenly got the fishing bug. You went fishing with him.
Oh yes, I've gone several times with him. He in the summer he has a place down in Chesapeake Bay called Todd's Point, and we've gone down there and fished blues. I had invited him up here to the Allagash several years ago, and we had a great time. So we've gone back. In fact, we went to the Moosehead for 1 week a few summers ago also. He's really into that fishing, and he does a fantastic job as far as knowing where to go, particularly down Chesapeake Bay, where to go and where the fish are. He's really studied fishing.
I know, you know, Jimmy, he's the last person in the world I thought would ever get into fishing.
Me too, bud. I never thought he'd really get into fishing the way he had. But it's great for him to do that because I think it gives him, particularly when he was coaching, gives him an outlet and something he really enjoys, and something that his son too, by the way, Eric, is an excellent fisherman, just excellent. So over the years, he's really come to enjoy fishing, and I'm real happy for him because
you two caught 100 blues out there in a day.
At one time, yeah, a few years ago, we caught 100 one day and 100 and some odd the next day, 4 of us. I'll tell you, as fast as we could pull them in, it was just unreal that time. It was just unreal.
Does he get excited? Does he show any emotion?
He gets excited. He gets excited, and to see those fish. And when there's no fish to be found, I've gone to him when we've been trolling, and there's no fish to be found. You know, he's kind of, something's wrong around here. Something's wrong. There's no fish. But he's just a joy to be with.
Jimmy, you're into health, and no single topic is more important in America, and especially in this day and age, than good health. Tell me all about Jim Sullivan and good health. What have been your aims and what have been your... I know you've done 3 books. This is a magnificent thing here called the Management and Health and Fitness Programs. You've gone to Brazil 3 times to lecture and conduct classes down there. Tell me what you've been doing.
Well, it goes way back. I think when I was young, as you perhaps know, I grew up in Rumford. My mother and father were Italian, and they were literate immigrants that came here. There was 11 of us in a family, and I'll never forget those days were real tough. I was real fortunate. Right after the war, I met my wife, who was a Bates graduate, and she asked me if I would be interested in going to college because we didn't have any money. But anyway, we decided, well, I'll give it a crack. So we got married and I started college. And at that time, I knew and I realized what it is to have good health, to be physically fit. I was always physically active, even in high school and as you perhaps know, through college and after college. So I really got to say to myself, well, look, what can a person do for his or her own personal health? Well, there's a lot a person can do. I started off, when I started writing, I wrote a book called Teaching Physical Activities to Impaired Youth, because I always had a soft spot in my heart for people that were disabled, handicapped. And in that book, I had alluded to how people could, you know, teach and work with and give some very important lessons to the impaired youth, which were handicapped or disabled, whichever term you want to use. And the next book I wrote was called Fitness for the Handicapped, where I thought there were a lot of fitness activities that the handicapped person could do. And the last book, called Management of Health and Fitness Programs, that was a book that I thought was needed in the field because there were many clubs, there's agencies, there's governmental agencies, there's private agencies, there's universities, there's businesses, industries, all have some kinds of fitness programs. But nowhere could I find, or very few could I find, that had management skills to run and conduct those programs. So I thought this last book that I wrote, I thought this was aimed at those people. And in it, I covered a majority of topics, some of which I think are really, really important. One was how to design a program. One was to develop a survey of whether it was interest survey, we call it. Then there was another survey, a needs survey. We talked about budgets and in that book. And we talked about staffing, and we talked about management skills and the principles of management, and it went on and on and on. So, and then I described the programs in health, you know, very briefly, because it wasn't it wasn't a book, a cookbook on the activities themselves, the exercise themselves. It was a book that was based on management skills. So, but I did describe the health programs. I also described the fitness programs. And as you perhaps know, we at the University of Southern Maine have been running fitness programs for the past 15 years. And I, along with Bob Folsom, was very instrumental in getting those programs going. At the present time, there are perhaps 3,000 people, some of which are the public. We have students in them, we have faculty staff in them. And we have every fitness program that's known. We have cardiac fitness, we have senior fitness for the senior folks, we have pulmonary fitness, we have aerobic exercise, we have weight training, and we just go on. So we go through, and then we have low back. So we have a variety of fitness programs that the public are invited to join, and they do, and the students and the faculty, as I just told you about.
Jim, I read in this book that there are now 2,000 agencies in America working in one direction for improved health and so forth. And this contrasts to 30 when you began this thing.
Yeah.
See, I did go through your book.
I know. Oh, I knew you would, bud.
And,
I hope you weren't too critical.
No, not many pictures, and I got to say that it was like reading the Wall Street Journal looking for the sports section. But anyway, this is so vitally interesting and so important with respect to health. The thing I'd like to have you expound on just a bit. Old gaffers your age, not mine. What can one do in this day and age? You can't all get out and jog and run 5 miles. You can't do aerobic dancing and all this kind of things. But in the way of activities, what do you tell the seniors?
Well, first of all, I want to straighten out the terminology. I think the term that I like to use is chronologically superior. Anyone that's over 55, they're chronologically superior. That means, in my book, that person, depending upon their functional level, can do many, many, many things. We don't expect them to jog, because as you get older, the bones take too much of a beating if you jog. But there's no reason why they can't walk. A fast walk with sustained for about 20, 25 minutes will give you the same benefits as somebody that goes jogging for that particular time. The other thing is they can do stationary bike, they can do regular bike, they can play tennis, they can play badminton, they can play racquetball. It all depends what they like to do. But the point is that they should do it, you know, consistently, at least 3 or 4 times a week. And the other thing is some of the older folks and chronologically superior folks like to you know, do weight training to keep their muscles in tonus. I think that's very important. But the thing is, it's hard to get them started. They just don't realize how beneficial exercise is to a person. It's extremely beneficial. And not only does a person have to exercise, they have to watch their nutrition, they have to watch their stress.
Okay, stop right there. I was going to get into food.
Okay.
Yeah,
not too much. I'm not an expert on food.
No. Well, all right. What should one avoid? I mean...
oh, well, that I can answer. Yeah. Fats.
All right.
Fats. Cholesterol.
You always look at me, and then we got Steve Falloon out here, who's doing his very best, one of our cameramen, to hit the big mark.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, fats. All right.
Right.
What do you mean by fat? Bacon?
You know, no bacon. Anything that
everything
like
that's good. You want you?
No, not really. But what we like to do is, if we do eat those kinds of things, for example, if we eat pork chops, I know my wife is very conscious in cutting off the fat as much as possible. Like, for example, if we have chicken soup and she makes it from scratch, not from a can, then what she'll do is let it cool, and then after she does, you just scoop off the fat that's on the top. I think, but there's more to it than just the fats. I think that smoking will never help a person. I don't care, no matter, it's just not going to help anybody. I think smoking is real bad.
You ever smoked?
Stress. Years and years ago, and I gave it up right after the war. 40-some-odd years ago.
You never smoked in college?
No, sir. No. Right after the war, I gave it up. I became an athlete, and I said, this is it. Of course, you could never smoke near Coach Nelson.
Well, no.
Clean living. We were clean living all the way.
That's
and
right.
Drinking, too.
That's right.
But anyway, we lived by the principles, and we expected the
You still
athletes.
call him Coach Nelson?
I still call him Coach.
Do you really?
Yeah, I still call him Coach. Yeah, and when I write to him, it's Coach, and the whole bit. We've never changed that relationship.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
But anyhow, I think the risk factors that a person must look at are the things that we alluded to. We're talking about the cholesterol, the fat. You see, when that fat gets into the arteries and plugs up those arteries, then what happens is the blood can't get through. And if the blood can't get through from the neck up, then you're talking about someone that's going to have a stroke, like poor old Red Berry. Now, Red, I think, smoked for many, many, many years, as I remember. And then from the neck down, you get some kind of a heart attack, whether it's severe, whether it's moderate, whether it's mild. It all depends on the situation at that particular time. So the risk factors, again, would be try to keep away from fats as much as possible, smoking, stress, and I think when you did that, and exercise is very important. That's why I think it's very important that people exercise at least 3 or 4 times a week. I try to do it myself, and I do it. And I think once it becomes a habit, then they do it automatically, regardless whether you're old or whether you're young. Now, in our country, the children are definitely not doing enough physical fitness activities. And that was pointed out from a girl in R&O. I forget her last name. One of the faculty members did a study. I think it was 30,000 Maine children or 20,000, I forget what it was. And it was perfectly clear from the results of that study that the Maine children are not physically fit.
What's the devil? Television?
Television is bad. We don't do much of it in schools. We should be doing more of it in school. It should be a lifetime commitment. In other words, start them young, just like you start to learn how to read and write and walk and all, then they should start to learn to do some kinds of physical activity.
Do you think our schools, on the secondary level, high school and so forth, do enough in the way of physical education?
No.
Neither do I.
No, I really, that's one of our greatest weaknesses in this state is that. And perhaps the reason is economics. We just don't have the money to hire the physical education teachers that should be in there teaching. And the other thing is, many of the high schools think it's all academics, And I believe in academics. I'm a firm believer. Academics are extremely important. That's number one. But to go parallel that, someone has to, come in with a pitch of physical activities. Now, the sports are great. There's no question about sport. But after a person plays a sport, what happens to that person? I know what happened to me. So what happens, you just go down there unless you have some kind of an activity that keeps up your muscle tone and your cardiovascular fitness. A lot of people don't understand that the heart is a muscle that has to be exercised like the rest of the muscles in the body, particularly the large muscle. And as a result, this is where it's get to start, in the schools. The schools should be, and in my view, emphasizing physical education as much as they emphasize the academic learning. They go hand in hand, they parallel, not one is above and one's below. And then it becomes a lifetime habit, and then you're all set.
Well, I know you've made 3 trips to Brazil.
Yeah.
How important is the health and the fitness programs in Brazil?
Well, 7 years ago when I went, I think I went through the Partners of the Americas, and I lectured for 2 weeks on fitness. And at that particular time, I've been around the city many times. I was at the Federal University of Rio Grande of the North, and it's about 1,000, that city is about 1,500 miles of Rio de Janeiro to northeast, right on the coast. And I didn't see many people exercising at all. So I spoke to the university people, or anyone else that wanted to come, through a translator, and I gave them all the general background about different kinds of fitness programs. Well, the second time I went, I lectured for 2 weeks on physical education for the disabled or the handicapped population. This past May, would be a year this May, last May, I spoke on 2 weeks for the topic was health education. Well, while I was there this past May, I was never so surprised in my life. I used to go down to the beach every morning and I'd walk. A friend of mine who was a vice rector, who they call him president, they call him rector down there, had a heart attack in Germany a few years ago. And he and I would walk the beach every morning. I was amazed, and I took pictures of some of the people that had bypass surgery or had some kind of angina or some kind of a heart disease problem, and they were down there walking. In addition, I saw many, many young folks starting to jogging around, and they had a beautiful jogging course. Of course, it's so warm, you have to go for early in the morning. And so I figure somewhere along the line, I must have made a little inroad someplace, because now they're starting to understand and they're starting to learn that fitness is a very important aspect of daily living.
What can young people without phys ed programs in their schools, be it junior high school, be it high school and so forth, what can they do on their own?
Well, the first thing I would do, I don't care how old a person is, I think it's very important to have a physical examination, a medical examination. You can't detect some of the things that's wrong with a person by just saying, okay, you can go out and run, and you can go out and do this, you go out and do that. That's one of the reasons why when a person enters school, it's very important, and they have a complete medical examination. That's number one. And as far as the others, you know, when you're in your teens or you're in, you know, you're in your early years and elementary grades and even sub-primary and those earlier grades, I think it's important that they do some kind of physical activity, and they can do all kinds of things. For example, just the other day, I went by, we have a child care operation at a university, and the building is attached to the gymnasium in Portland, and I saw the little ones, and I don't think they're more than 3 or 4. They were starting to do little competitions of little relays and little jogging. And the teacher would say go, and they would start to run, and she'd say stop, see who would be 1 and who would be 2. So you have to be careful on that, though, to make sure that they're all winners. I think it's very important at that age that you don't start singling out, I'm better than not, because I think you cause all kinds of growing up problem. And the other thing is that in the state of Maine, we're blessed. We just don't understand how great this state is in terms of its climate. In the winter, you can jog, you can walk, you can bicycle in the fall and in the spring, and you can ski. And there's many, many types of activities. You can play racquetball inside if you like that. You can play badminton, which I've done for many years. You can play squash. There's so many different activities that will give you the benefits that will be derived from a good physical fitness program. So there's no excuse. It's just a matter of, am I too lazy? Will I get started? Who's going to motivate you to get started? But once you get started, and you know how well you feel after you've exercised, after you get yourself in condition, I'm just sure you'll keep on for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So those are the activities that I think are important.
Do you think that the individual, be it the young person or the senior or what have you, is a lot brighter, a lot keener, and I'm thinking mainly of the kid that has to do studying. Being in keen and top shape, balanced diet, hopefully, and is doing physical training, is perhaps running or playing soccer or whatever it is.
Sports.
Do you think this is a brighter student than one who does not participate?
There's no question in my mind. I think research will prove that out. Regardless of your age, once you get your body in condition, once you get your body in condition in that it can do the kinds of things that you want it to do in terms of studying, your mind is more alert, and I think you grasp concepts much faster, and then you do your regular program, whatever it happens to be. They go hand in hand. So that's right. I agree that if a person is academically sharp, it's perhaps because that person is definitely in good physical shape. At least that's the way I see it, and that's my own opinion, and I think research would prove that out, regardless of the age.
Do you have any instances in mind where some youngster suddenly adopted a Phys Ed program, where it turned him around just a little bit? Well,
I'm glad you asked. I teach 3 classes of beginning weight training at the university. I just started it this fall, and I have 40-some-odd students. I have students in there that were quite overweight. I had some students that just had the musculature was there, but it wasn't toned up, and they were both men and women, college, some of them from all different disciplines, some from psychology, some from education, some from computer science. They were all, and I polled them all because I have it in writing. I have them fill out some kind of a form to say whether they're English majors or psych majors or philosophy or physics or whatever their major is. And I try to, and once I got them in there, and once I told them to start, gradually, and I said, look, this is just for muscle strength and muscle endurance. That's not aerobic exercise. That's not cardiovascular exercise. That you have to do is something different. And we do have some of those programs too. They're for 1 credit, and it's good towards graduation. But they can't take the same course twice. So we do have them in aerobic exercise, and we have them in weight training. But my weight training students are both in weight training, and they're also taking a course in aerobics, exercise. So they're getting to get the whole picture by saying, this is good for my heart, but these are good for my other muscles, and considering that the heart is a muscle, and that you want to use and work that, and as well as you want to work the other the large muscles, the gross motor muscles that we have in our body.
Take me down the road in this same class. Some of these individuals who come in overweight and so forth have not done any of this, suddenly have got into it in good shape, and 60 days later, they're real happy with themselves. How have they responded to the program thereafter? I mean, will they motivate themselves after the introductory period?
Gee, I'm glad you asked that question, because just yesterday, Friday afternoon, I usually work out in the afternoon late, sometimes 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I went down to the weight room on the way by. I saw several of my students. There wasn't a class. They just got to feel that they've got to get their program in. We only meet twice a week as a class, but they're in there 3 and 4 times a week, which they should. So they're twice with me in class, and then they're in there by themselves, which was very, very helpful. And when I saw them, I go and I talk, and I get to know my students. It's important to me to get to know my students. I know sometimes you're in such a class that you never get to know the student. I like to know my students, where they come from, and they come from all over the state, and some from Massachusetts, Vermont, the whole bit. But make a long story short, I think once I can go down and I check, then I know that they're really caught on. So they're down there, but they're not in class, but they're down there, and they know it's important. They know they want to improve themselves. They want to get themselves in better shape. And once they do that, and after the end of the semester, I'm sure I'll see them in there again.
Let me turn the clock back just a few years. You weighed about 190 pounds playing football, as I recall you at the University of Maine.
Just about. Right. You got a good memory.
And you were a tackle, and you were a tough little guy.
Well, I don't know about that.
All right, I can say that because it was true, see. What did you get out of football?
Oh, God.
That left you something down through the years? What did it teach you?
You know, I think the first thing that youngsters get to play sports, I think the first thing is they get to learn what loyalty is. They get to learn what leadership is, or followership. Either they're going to be leaders or they're going to be followers. They get to learn to be dedicated to a particular physical activity or sport in this particular case, it gives you some feeling of teamwork. You can't play football unless you're a team. You can't be an individual. That's not an individual sport like track. You've got to be a part of a team. And if you're not part of that working team, no way. I think when I put those factors together, leadership, morale, attitude, and I think the idea of working as a team is very important. Your dedication to your coach, your loyalty to your coach, you learn training rules, and I imagine some break those training rules. But I think if you're really sincere and you really want to be a good athlete, those are the kinds of things that athletics will bring out on an individual. And I think those are you keep for the rest of your life. It's a lifetime commitment. Once you start to play and you go through it, you don't quit. You're not a quitter. You stick it out. I know when I played for coach up there, the first year I didn't play many hours or minutes even. I rode the bench, and I understood that. But I was part of a team, and I made the best contribution I could. And then later on, I learned my skills a little bit better, better refined, and I was first string and so forth and so on. That is a kind of a lesson that you can't learn anywhere else. You can't learn those things in a classroom, but no way. You've got to learn them either on a court or on a field, and I think those are things, again, I just repeat, those are the things that last the rest of your natural life. They're important to a person. But on the other hand, although they're extremely important, and you keep them for the rest of your life, you've got to realize, and Coach always believed in this, that you had to be a student first. He said, what good would you be to me if you were an All-American, but you were flunking? It's a couple of courses you couldn't play. So what good is it? You had all those skills. So again, it's hand in hand. You've got to keep the academics up, and your athletics goes right in there with it.
Good to see an old-timer like you.
A chronologically superior.
Oh, yes. Dr. James W. Sullivan, University of Southern Maine in Portland. If anyone out there, group, no matter what, is interested in health and the management of health programs, this book is highly recommended. He can be easily reached at UM Southern Maine. Good to see you, Jimmy.
It's always great to see you, Bud. And
good night, everyone.
Along the mountain track, and as I go, I love to sing. My knapsack on my back, Valerie, my knapsack on my back. I love to wander by the stream that dances in the